Another day, another Brandon Aiyuk report. This time, there's a deal in place, according to Ian Rappaport. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. Stick around for a new episode of the Bully Ball Podcast. Man, that intro blew out my AirPods. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. This is the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Steph, good to see you. It's been a while. I hope you had a lot of fun out there watching actual football and, touching grass and stuff and not sitting and worrying about what's going on with Brandon Aiyuk.
It was nice. I did miss you and Rob, miss Bully Ball and all this. But yeah, training camp was fun. But I'm ready to get back into it. It was nice to touch grass, go out there and, have my fun, but, ready for the grind of the season.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited. So
excited.
So excited. So just a few minutes ago, Ian Rappaport sends out a tweet which states, update on Brandon Aiyuk. The Steelers and the 49ers have a deal on a potential trade, and Pittsburgh is in a good place on an Aiyuk contract, sources say. If SF gives the final sign-off, it's done. SF has an offer out to Aiyuk on a long-term deal for him to stay. He hasn't accepted. The funny part is I sent out a tweet about an hour ago saying, everybody's repurposing and rewording the same stuff. This feels like that, but the only difference is now there's a deal, which can only mean one of two things, Steph. The Steelers upped their offer to what the 49ers wanted, or the 49ers are absolutely collapsing and just taking whatever they can get for Brandon Aiyuk. I think either way, this is just going down as a disaster.
I think it's been a disaster for quite some time already, but it continues to feel like we're getting close to a resolution. But at the same time, there's been several points this offseason where I have felt that way. Last week, for example, I really felt like something was about to happen. The week prior to that, I really felt like something was about to happen, literally that day. And we still continue to see no movement. And so basically, yes, what this tweet tells me is, yes, there's a deal in place. That's cool. That means we're closer to something. But still, I still see this dragging on, because what this says to me is the 49ers could continue to drag this out if they want to, if they feel like, I don't know, they want to see if Brandon Aiyuk is really sure that he wants to actually go to another team. I don't really know what the waiting benefits anyone at this point. I mean, it's August 13th. I understand there's about a week or a month left till the start of the season. But that's valuable time for teams to get ready for the season. And with all the injuries and all this stuff that the 49ers are dealing with, it would be nice to have some type of resolution to all this. And if, in fact, the 49ers are getting a wide receiver back in this deal, which I would assume they would be, because that's what all the reports prior to this one had been saying the 49ers had been wanting, then, I mean, I would love for that receiver to get on board ASAP, so we could just move the hell on. But who knows what's going to end up happening here.
So the San Francisco 49ers have to cancel their joint practices because they have so many injuries. And we literally got the film of a football game that was played in which the 49ers are running out Trent Taylor, Chris Conley, Ronnie Bell, Robbie Chosen Anderson, Robin Chosen Anderson, whatever. And the 49ers think now is the right time to make sure we get rid of Brandon Aiyuk, because if you thought our wide receiver depth was really short, let's just make it shorter.
Yeah.
The problem is this, and this has always been the problem with this Pittsburgh Steelers deal and wanting a receiver back. I don't want fucking Van Jefferson or Calvin Austin. I'm sorry. I like both of them. I like Calvin Austin in the draft process. I don't want Van Jefferson. He stinks. The only way this deal makes sense for the 49ers is to get George Pickens. That doesn't make sense for the Steelers, because if you trade George Pickens for Brandon Aiyuk, you're no closer to being a Super Bowl contender. You're no closer to pairing Brandon Aiyuk and George Pickens together and being a Super Bowl contender with both of them. So right now, this is literally a disaster. No matter what this is. It could be Pat Freiermuth. It could be a second and a third. I don't care. I don't care. None of that is going to help the 49ers this season be better better suited at running at the Super Bowl again. If I sound frustrated, it's because I've been holding this in because I've been bored and tired of this. I want this done one way or another, but that does not absolve the 49ers from the way that they've handled it. That doesn't absolve Aiyuk for the way he's handled it. There's been mistakes on every side. I'm tired of it all. I'm tired of it all. I don't want to hear any more about it. At this point, tell me what it is so I can get mad. I can get it out, and then I can get back to actually talking about football because I'm tired of it. Van Jefferson in a second, Calvin Austin in a third. That's the return? You think you're like that's going to be, you're going to be fine with that. You're going to be okay with that. No, I don't want either of those guys. They're not good. Pat Fryermuth is good, but now all of a sudden the 49ers are going to start running a bunch of 2 tight end stuff when they only run with a blocker and George Kittle. I'm tired of it. Get it done so I can get mad. But I'm already mad because this shit has been an unmitigated disaster. You literally watch those corpses run routes in the preseason game. And you're saying now, today is the day that we want to test our wide receiver depth. It's unreal, Steph. I don't understand.
Just so you guys know, that was Jay holding back. And that is spicy aponte for you guys on a Tuesday morning. But I mean, I think at this point, that's the energy that we all have with this trade. It's like, dude, shit or get off the pot. Like, just do something. I'm so tired of this. And like I said, like all these reports that have come out just tell me that the 49ers are sitting on their hands on this. And I don't know what they feel they're gaining from waiting to find a resolution here. They can have a resolution on this today. But at this point, I just don't think any side, like, it's like a standoff. Like, I don't think the 49ers actually want to trade Brandon Aiyuk. Like, yes, they say all these things. They'd be fine with it, but I don't think they want to. I think Brandon Aiyuk, at the same time, doesn't want to be traded either. So that's why we're at this standstill. It's like 2 sides playing hardball, but it's, like, really annoying. And hopefully something gets done soon. At this point, like you said, Jay, it is a disaster. And I mean, honestly, I don't think there's really any trade that the 49ers could get that would make me feel too much better about it. If the trade partner is going to be with the Steelers, like there's no one on that team that I'm like, oh yeah, give me that guy.
Well,
instead of Brandon Aiyuk.
Well, let me refloat my trade idea that someone in my YouTube comments took completely serious. So I might as well double down and triple down on this. Or the last show that I did with Rob, I would accept nothing but TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Mike Tomlin, Antonio Brown from 2011, and a first-round pick, and then we can get it done.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like of all the conversations that like have been floated out, Amari Cooper would have been like top tier, right? But clearly that's not something that's going to happen. So, and yeah, like now it just feels like the 49ers are like settling for something that they don't have to. And like we've been sensing they don't actually want to, but at the same time, like doesn't seem like Brandon Aiyuk is going to take their offer. I think it's pretty clear that whatever the 49ers are offering, it isn't what the Steelers are offering Brandon Aiyuk. Hey, Jay, do you know a simple way that we can fix this problem and just have Brandon Aiyuk sign a deal with the 49ers?
How's that?
Maybe matching the Steelers' offer.
And I didn't think of that. I didn't think of that.
It's probably not that far off.
I didn't think of that.
Are offering. Yeah, I know, right?
I didn't think of that.
They should hire me.
Yeah, that's some like progressive thought process right there. And David Lombardi here with the tweet. Sounds like the 49ers might want a firm decision from Brandon Aiyuk. The last thing they want is for this to drag out. We've long looked at mid-August as a deadline of sorts if they didn't want this to creep too close to the regular season. Yes, you need Brandon Aiyuk to be in camp now more than ever when you literally have to cancel joint practices and you have to bring in Robbie Chosen and you're contemplating keeping Trent Taylor on this roster. You're looking at Chris Conley possibly running at X because Juwan Jennings isn't at X, unfortunately. It's just the six. This is what's funny is all offseason we're sitting there. We're like, well, Brandon Aiyuk, they'll figure it out. And they just drafted 2 receivers. So this might be the deepest 49ers wide receiver room. Well, today on August 13th, that doesn't look like that at all, especially if Brandon Aiyuk leaves, because after the top three, what do you feel confident in? Ricky Pearsall hasn't taken a snap. Jacob Cowing hasn't really done anything either, even though I think the world of him. I think he's going to be a great player. I mean, even today, I believe it was Matt Barrows was on KNBR on 95.7 The Game, hinting that Cowing might not even make the 53. Yeah, like him even saying this out loud. No Cowing on the 53. Pearsall's not ready. Trent Taylor is actually catching passes instead of just being a camp novelty. Robbie Chosen has a chance to not be more than a camp body. And now is when you're just like, this is when we got to move from Brandon Aiyuk. Did the situation get so tense? Did it get so contentious that now you just can't have him around anymore and you just have to make a deal done? When you look at this wide receiver group and you're just like, it's two good guys and a bunch of question marks?
That's what's very concerning about me, because you know, like with all this going on, like, okay, the 49ers have to feel more pressure to get this done with Ayuk, right? And all this time, it's like the 49ers are trying not to show that they're probably panicking about their wide receiver situation outside of Debo and Juwan Jennings. Like literally outside of those two guys, like, yeah, like you said, bunch of question marks. Feel good about them, but good vibes aren't gonna get you very far. So especially when injuries are on the horizon as they are with this team right now. So it's like, I know the 49ers are panicking about the situation. No praise that you give Robbie Chosen could make me feel better about this situation. Like, I am sorry. I can't even believe Kyle Shanahan was asked about Robbie Chosen and that he had those things to say about him. Like, that's where we are at, at this point. I have no words about this situation. But at the same time, I have so much so much to say about it. I just hope it gets done soon. Like we've been waiting for like all season, and then it's like, oh, it's just a waiting game. We're gonna wait and see. Okay, that was the same thing as like the month before that. Like, can we please just do something?
I think there's a comment from Colin that I wanted to bring up, Rob, if you see it there, and put it up on the screen, because I do think this is another good talking point about this saga and the way things have gone here. Because we all go back to the Trent Williams situation, and Kyle had to step in and say, get it done. Like, get it done. We're not messing around. Get it done. And Colin says Shanahan not throwing his weight around in this situation is equally as frustrating as Parag Jed trying to win a negotiation instead of a Super Bowl. Here's what's hilarious. Kyle's been put in charge of this personnel group. He's the one who makes the decisions up and down the roster in terms of who's going to be up and who's going to be playing. He has much more control than anybody believes, and I think a lot of people believe that. And yet, Kyle can't just walk up and say, hey, man, just give him the $2 million. We'll figure out the rest later. I really want to have him here.
You don't
think
so?
I don't think he has. If he has, it would be done. If he has, it will be done.
I think he could do that. I think Kyle could do that. I think,
of course, he can do that. He just hasn't done it.
So that's the thing. Why has he not done it?
That's it's perplexing to me, because he's literally the highest that this offense ever goes is when you have an X who can get open by himself. Julio Jones, Brandon Aiyuk, right? Like that, like an X. Right? Not a guy that, yes, of course, Brandon Aiyuk benefits from the scheme, as all players do. But Brandon Aiyuk is the one who can win man to man all the time when you need it. And the idea that now, well, we're going to be fine because we have Debo and Kittle and Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings and Debo are not separators. Juwan Jennings gets the ball on third down, generally going against third and fourth best cover guys. Now, you want him to play X? He's very slow. He can't play X. So now does Chris Conley play X? Did you really think you were going into the season trying to run it back to a Super Bowl with Chris Conley playing X? No. And there's no other wide receiver. Well, maybe if they trade him for Devontae Adams, you feel better. If they trade picks for Devontae Adams, you feel better. Because that's something Diana Rossini's talking about, is another one. But that's the only way that you replace Brandon Aiyuk with a chance to duplicate this offensive output that you put up last year is if you bring in a X receiver that is dominant, that can get himself open, and that can actually do something with the ball in his hands.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's a great guess as to why the deal that's on the table with the Steelers hasn't been accepted by the 49ers, or has been accepted, but like they haven't given the final say to actually have it be finalized. It's probably not that good of a deal. So they want to see if they can still salvage something out of this, because they know it's not a good look right now. And yeah, we also had the report of a third team, being in the mix, or the 49ers want to get a third team in the mix to get a wide receiver. That also tells me that the Steelers' current offer probably doesn't include a wide receiver, right? Because that was just yesterday that we saw those reports which wasn't news, by the way. Like, we had heard that already.
What wide receiver though? God, if you send me Van Jefferson or Calvin Austin, I'm gonna flip a table. I know that everybody wants to play in Kyle Shanahan's system, and everybody feels like, oh, imagine them in Kyle. I don't want to imagine Van Jefferson or Calvin Austin in a 49ers uniform. My God, what are we doing here? Van Jefferson couldn't stick around in Atlanta, nowhere else. Calvin Austin, I liked him at the Senior Bowl. He's too little. Josina Anderson just sent out a tweet adding what I'm hearing. My understanding is the Steelers believe an agreement is currently completely on their end and has been for an unspecified period now to trade for Brandon Aiyuk, but that the organization is still waiting for final approvals from the 49ers per source. Rap Sheet was the first to report this. Additionally, when I asked about the reason for the ongoing delay in officially consummating a deal, I gathered from the rhetorical questions in response that there's lingering curiosity on whether San Francisco is still reviewing its option and leverage. Again, I'm told it's a waiting game.
It's like when you've broken up with someone and you trying to get back together with them, but you could pursue a new relationship, and there's someone who's feeling you and wants to be with you too, but you're like, you really want to get back with the ex, so you're like, do you want to get back together? Oh, okay, no. Okay, tomorrow I'm gonna ask again. How about now? And it just feels like that with Brandon Aiyuk. It's like, are you sure? Are you sure you actually want to get traded? Think about it, please. And then he comes back like, no.
I know this one. Okay. So the relationship is at the point where, you kind of say, well, we're not going to be together. And then me, at the last moment, I send a text, come outside and talk to me face to face. Or I'm outside, like I need to pick something up in the house. I left the sock.
Not that one.
I left the sock. Say it to my face.
Not the one singular sock. But like,
one sock. I need that sock. That sock's important. That's what Kyle can do right now. Kyle can be the toxic person at the end who can say it to my face, meet me outside. Or you sure you're done with this? I need closure. Say it to my face. This is what you can do, Kyle. It works time and time again.
But how many times have we heard now that both sides have had a productive talk and have said everything that really needed to be said? Because my count is at 2 now, 2 separate times that both sides have apparently talked it out, and they're trying to work it out, right? And still nothing has happened. So what is actually going on here? What is actually going on?
Nothing, really. I mean, again, it felt like the only change in this report to everything else is that the 49ers have actually come to terms with whatever it is the Steelers are offering. Now, what is that is going to infuriate me regardless, because I know it's not George Pickens. I know it's not Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt or anything like that. Like, I know it's not that. It's definitely not that. So it's going to infuriate me even more than I am that we're just at this point regardless, and that we're wasting valuable time continuing to talk about a situation that has had no real updates for weeks and months. It's literally been repurposing and just saying he could be traded, he could sign an extension, he could play on his 5th. That's literally all this has ever been. It's really gotten to a point where I'm frustrated to even have to discuss this, with the 49ers having all of these problems right now in training camp with who's injured, who's in, who's out. We have training camp battles. We have game film that we're able to watch. We should be talking about how excited we are about Dominic Pooney and pass protection. We should be talking about how excited we are that Malik Mustafa's a thumper and makes a play. JP Mason's running the football well, or our concerns with this team. But here we are, August 13th, and we're still talking about the same thing over and over. And now the only real update is that maybe the 49ers have caved or made the Steelers up their offer. It's really just, it's been annoying and it's been tough to do 49ers concept because I don't want to keep coming on here every time another repurposed, reworded report that is a word salad and says nothing, and then be on here like, new development. There are no developments. There haven't been. Except for, well, they had a good talk. Well, nothing happened. Well, they're going to take the weekend. Then nothing happens. Well, the Steelers have a deal. Well, then nothing happens. A third team's involved. Nothing's happening. So if I sound frustrated, it's less about the situation itself because I've emotionally detached from that because I can't control what the 49ers do. But I'm really, really just annoyed and bothered with the fact that we have to keep talking about this because that's the worst part of this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it is overshadowing some good things, right? That, we've been seeing in camp, but we got to talk about the Aiyuk stuff first. And it's also kind of overshadowing some like bad things like Trent deal, like still not getting done as well. And then also all these injuries that continue to pile up. It's just this cloud, it's adding to the cloud, I should say, that's hanging over the 49ers right now. So, Jay, are you okay if we are done talking about Brandon Aiyuk for now?
Please.
Unless something happens while we're live, we are done with it for now.
Here we go.
Can I just pop in here really quick and ask you guys a question?
Sure.
Josina Anderson tweet. She says the 49ers are still reviewing options and leverage. The options and the leverage have been clear for weeks. We know the options. Trade Aiyuk to Pittsburgh. Now you've agreed on a contract with them. Force Brandon Aiyuk to play on the 5th-year option if he chooses to play. Or 3, meet his price and extend him. Those are the options. They've been the options for weeks. What is left to review?
Your guess is as good as mine, Rob. And I don't know, Jay, if you have any other guesses,
No.
But I think we're all kind of like at a loss for like what the hell the 49ers are waiting on here.
I love when people ask me on Twitter, like, oh, Jay, what do you think's going on? I have no fucking idea. I literally have no idea. And I'm sorry that I hope, again, for the audio listeners, that won't be in there. But like, if you guys are like listening with small children, I apologize. I have no idea. I don't pretend to know. All I can do is what everybody else is doing is making educated guesses based on whatever information is out there. Like at this point, like there is no way to know what's going on. I don't have any idea. I don't think anybody has any idea because there's no rhyme or reason for a player of this caliber to have not been moved by the draft, to move them right now during training camp when your wide receiver room is absolutely struggling. And now this is the time to do this. None of this has ever made any sense. None of it will make sense. And I don't think, 10 years down the line when someone writes the book about this 49ers team, they'll be able to make sense of this either.
I think assuming that a trade does happen, I think it's just a matter of time before both sides regret that decision. So, hey, Jay, we'll continue to wait and see what happens. I'm sure we'll be talking about this next week and say more or less the same thing.
Look, you know how like everybody's like, well, if Brandon Aiyuk acts like he's injured, he could sit out the season. I will act like I have a hamstring injury and not be on here next week if we have to keep talking about Brandon Aiyuk. Put it down, Rob. I don't know if we got sick days or anything like that, but all of a sudden, my leg's acting up. I'm not going to be able to go today. Like I can't do this anymore, man.
It's strained your vocal cord.
Strained throat, man, something. Like, you know what? I will literally let myself get hit with a brick or something like that just so I don't have to be on here. But, oh, my God. I just, again, I'm not really emotional about the situation. I'm emotional about the fact that it's annoying that we still have to talk about this. Yes. Because I want to talk about so many other things about this team. There's so many other issues and things. So we haven't even mentioned Trent Williams' name yet.
That's what I'm saying. Let's do it. Let's do it.
So, all right. So Trent Williams, man. Hey, buddy, you want to show up too? Or like, what are we doing here? Like, because it is on one front, and Anthony asks serious questions. What's worse, the Jimmy talk or the Brandon Aiyuk talk? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. The only difference is the Jimmy talk lasted years. And these last few months have felt like 3 years. But the Jimmy talk lasted longer. And the answer is always yes to that question. So with Trent Williams, right? Doesn't that seem like that's something that is not being talked about at all? And it's super quiet. Everything we're getting, literally every, kick on the floor, whatever about Aiyuk. Hey, this is developing. Not a word. Not a word. And if anybody needs to be prioritized and get done immediately, is it because nobody thinks that they'll ever let him walk, which they shouldn't? You have to sign Trent Williams.
There's not enough anger over like Trent Williams not being signed yet, just because of what's going on with Brandon Aiyuk. But there needs to be, I think, more rage about that, because the fact that it's not done yet is kind of crazy to me, because it should be similar to the Christian McCaffrey situation where, okay, you want to get paid more. We know you're like the best at your position. We're going to give you what you want. We just got to work out, the kinks and figure out how that's going to look, how we're going to structure it and all that. We're going to get you the money. And that's it. Like, that should be pretty simple to do, right? So I don't know what the holdup is with that one, but that needs to get done soon, because my concern is, and I understand that, like, Trent Williams, like I said, he's best at his position. Like, I trust that he's preparing, just like I trust Nick Bosa last offseason to prepare for the season and do everything he could do without actually being in the facility. But just like Nick Bosa said, there's a certain there's only so much that you can prepare for without actually being hands-on and lining up against someone,
And Kyle mentioned that as well too. Kyle said, I believe that he's getting himself ready. I mean, about Aiyuk.
Yeah, and so, like, I get it. They could only do so much. So I worry about the rust factor, especially with Trent, because he's older. I just hope there isn't any like rust when he comes back. But realistically, I think you have to expect some. You know, look, I'll say this: a rusty Trent is probably still better than like Jalen Moore, but
100%.
but still, I just want.
I mean,
this
a
to
rusty
get
Trent is
quickly.
A rusty Trent is better than 98% of the left tackles in football.
Like easily.
Yeah.
But still, I don't think that should be any reason for them to like say he'll be fine. Like we don't need to rush this, because I would like him back. I would like him back, and I think that's valuable for Nick Bosa as well to prepare for the season.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, right? Is Nick Bosa has been very vocal about not being ready at training camp. And it seems like almost every time there's a contract negotiation, a player tends to come back and not perform to the level of the time before it for whatever reason. I'm just, connecting the dots when it comes to contract negotiation, how that played out, right? With Trent, I think he has earned such a level of respect in terms of, hey, man, just get him to week 1. Because realistically, he wouldn't be practicing much. But somebody really told me something, and this is somebody who's a former player. Training camp isn't just for like installing, it's for you to start getting hit so you can prepare your body for the entire season, because it's almost like a callus. If you keep like messing with it, it toughens, it hardens. That's what they have to do. That's what training camp is for, on top of like the installing, is start getting hit now. So when it gets to December, you've already kind of transition your body into being able to take all the physicality and the violence and everything as well too. So yeah, look, I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh my God, the vibes are off. Like, it's just, it is what it is right now with the injuries and with Trent not being there. Obviously the Aiyuk situation, for me, just right now, when you see Kyle say, listen, no joint practices, 23 players injured, I don't even want to look at the list. Kalia Davis, who actually had a good game against Tennessee, flashed a little bit, gone, like for half the season now. Obviously, Trent, McCaffrey, they probably weren't going to play a ton, and those are two candidates to just get ready for week 1. Kittle is somebody that, you want to see ramp up a little bit, because he has missed, I think, the last 2 week 1s, if I'm not mistaken. No, he played week 1 against Pittsburgh. I apologize. But there's a lot to deal with right now on this team, and it's just, again, without Trent, without Aiyuk, it magnifies all of these things so much more now, because now you're looking at a reality of, which I think we both still believe that Trent Williams is there, eventually. I don't know where we sit on this Aiyuk thing. That I have no more predictions. Like, I'm done on the predictions. but it magnifies all of the issues with the roster right now and what's going on with the team, because now you're looking around like this could be a foreseeable future for us.
Which is why I think a lot of fans have the concern about vibes. Like, obviously, when you're coming off a Super Bowl loss, like, the vibes have to be protected because you need the vibes to be good. Like, if you're going to feel good about being able to climb that mountain again, right? I'm not so worried about that aspect of it, like coming off the Super Bowl loss, but obviously that plus all these other things, the impending extension conversations that are still unresolved, the growing list of injuries, like that to me is starting to become a little concerning. But like I know the 49ers kind of have this issue every year, but if you look at
Except for last year.
So that's the thing. Like, you look at last year and you're like, they had a lot of injury luck. And
you had to
so
figure
looking at
that
it
was
now,
going to change. That's why we were so
exactly.
crestfallen
But
when
not
we
like
didn't get it
this.
done. It's like, I'm like, dude,
Not
the
like
third
this.
healthiest team. Yeah, the third healthiest team in the NFL. And then you're right back to where you were every single year before. I'm sorry, Steph. Keep going.
Like, this is looking like 2020. Jay.
Don't say that.
I hate to say that. Oh no, don't worry, I'm gonna knock on wood.
Nah,
But
all right.
it's feeling like that. And I don't want to gaslight any fan and be like, no, you're crazy for feeling like the vibes
No,
are
you have
off.
every right to be concerned. Look at this.
Yeah. This is a long list of names that Rob just put up here of guys who are injured. And a lot of them, like, they're not super serious, right? But I think you do worry about how some of these could pile up into the season. Like, a couple of these guys have been re-aggravated, like Ricky Pearsall. Wasn't it his shoulder?
It was a shoulder.
He had
Yeah.
the hamstring, but then he
Mhm.
re-aggravated the
He
shoulder.
had the hamstring outside the building, and then he
Yes.
ended up with the shoulder.
Yep. And then Kalia Davis, like, knee injury, out for half the year. That is with like all the other injuries. I don't remember if it was originally a knee that, yeah, it was an ACL, right? That he was recovering from after
Yeah.
he was drafted. And then, like, we've only seen so much of him. And he
Yeah.
looked good in that first preseason game. So it's a bummer to see him, be out for half of the year. And then Drake Jackson, which, like, I get it. Like, no one was expecting anything out of Drake Jackson. At least I wasn't. But like, a re-aggravation there, or like, not a re-aggravation, but like, he's still dealing with that. Like, that's not cool.
And that still could have been a rotational edge guy, even if you weren't expecting anything. Sometimes you just need bodies on the field, right? Like, and see, the thing is okay, right? So look, Christian McCaffrey, Jake Brendel, John Feliciano at points, Hufanga, Fred Warner, those are starters.
Yeah.
Now, for the most part, your 49ers starters are fine. That's not the issue. The issue is the depth now. It's the depth and everything else that's going from behind guys. So now if there is, knock on wood, an injury to someone else, now it gets scary. Now it gets really spooky. You start looking around at guys, and we're all talking about like, separators. You think that Chris Conley and all these guys are going to separate now all of a sudden? Like, if they have to be forced into action? So it's not the starters, it's the depth. And now you're going to have to start coming off getting guys off the street, off the scrap heap.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not like, finding a Trent Taylor and Robbie Chosen isn't easy, Steph. It's not easy, all right? You don't just find those guys walking around, all right? But that's where we are. It's not necessarily the starters. It's what's going on behind them, and that's the problem.
Yeah, and especially at this time of the year where it's preseason and a lot of those depth guys are getting the most minutes, in these games, and
they need reps, and you want to see what they
would
can
have
do.
been in the scrimmage as well, like if they had the joint practices, which were canceled with the Saints. But yeah, I mean, I guess like that's what is concerning to me, and I just hope it doesn't become a thing for the season. Like, let's get these out of the way now. Let's get them out of the way now.
Oh,
let's hope that all these guys are healthy for the season.
Let's put our optimist hats on, even though you don't have a hat. Your hair looks amazing, by the way, Steph. This is 4D chess by the 49ers to get rid of all the injuries for the season in training camp right now. Say it, guys.
Think of that. You know,
That's it. I mean, this is the forward thinking that other teams just don't have.
it's innovative.
Everybody get injured now, so we don't have to worry about injuries during the season. You guys are all going to be fine for week 1. What's the worst that could happen? Pretty good, man.
Yeah,
I think it's
mean, no, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. So, Jay, like you don't feel like the vibes are off.
Look, I think
You're not
injuries
there yet.
happen. I think we're kind of just seeing it across the league as well, too. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs has
Yeah, that's
an
fair.
injury. You know, like I think everybody's going through it. I don't sit and cry boo-hoo when injuries happen. It's a part of football. What is hurtful is last season, for the most part, except for in the Super Bowl when like Dre Greenlaw tore his Achilles and Feliciano leaves the game and even the DB coach tears his Achilles, the 49ers have very good injury luck. Very good injury luck. Like, they didn't lose guys for a long time. They lost Debo for 3. They lost Trent for 3. But for the most part, they were very healthy. It's kind of just the way things go. Now, the 49ers have a longer history of the injuries happening. But if you look around the league, I believe, what is it? The Giants just lost their backup running back too. Tyrone Tracy. Like I said, Jahmyr Gibbs, Malik Neighbors is a little banged up. It's happening everywhere. Kind of like it's happening everywhere, kind of. So I just feel like I'm not like sitting here like, oh my God, it's only the 49ers. If you look around the league, it's pretty much happening to a lot of people. Maybe not to the extent, but it is bound to happen. And there's going to be a lot of players that are going to be lost in training camp. And that just kind of sucks.
Yeah, for sure. But as long as they're, they could bounce back, then, we good. But, Jay, there was a game on Sunday.
There was
and
Saturday, right?
There are some things I think to be excited about some of the guys that we watched.
Was it Saturday or Sunday?
It was Saturday. My bad.
Saturday, yeah.
Did I say Sunday?
Yeah, because I think it was because you were referring to the barn burner of a matchup between Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. Unfortunately, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't make it. By the way, Trey Lance looked awful on Sunday.
Well,
real bad. I'm sorry.
Jimmy Garoppolo
didn't play. Didn't play. He didn't play.
As free as he's ever been, apparently. So.
Yeah, he was free in Las Vegas too. Get over it, pal. It's fine. But 41 attempts for Trey Lance, 4.3 yards per attempt. Either way, so Saturday. I think you were just confused with Sunday because that was such a barn burner.
Yeah, for sure that was it. And then I was very obviously encouraged by Dominic Pooney. That's exactly like we had seen from Pooney like all of training camp. And I guess like I was curious, optimistic of course, but I was curious to see like what that was going to look like in the preseason in a game. He, of course he started at right guard and he was playing against the Titans starters, right? Like
for a little bit.
The Titans.
But Jeff Simmons didn't play like for the most part, right? Like as good as it could be for the most part.
For the most part. And so right off the bat, like I think that's really encouraging, especially because it seems like at every turn, Kyle and Chris Forrester want to pump the brakes a little bit on like just people assuming that he's going to be the starter. But like I feel like he's checking those boxes pretty quickly and probably quicker than they originally anticipated. And so even if he does have Chris Forrester always talks about like the learning curve. He's got a learning curve, which I get. I think every offensive lineman experiences that from like going to college to the NFL. But so far he's passing the eye test, I would say, right?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, look, he was a stone wall in college, right? We knew that in pass pro. That's exactly what he did on the game film. If he can shore up just a little bit more of the running game, I mean, I don't see how Pooney's not starting. I really don't, like at this point. And I think that's obviously good news because then you've got like Feliciano, whenever he gets back, as a depth piece, guys who he can fill in for anybody. I will say this, and I think we talked about in the group chat, Aaron Banks, not really like too impressive, but hey, first game of the preseason. I want to talk about a concern. Missed tackles are back. 13 missed tackles?
Yeah, that's bad.
13? And it's not just the backups. Jair Brown misses one. Malik Mustafa, D. Winters. You always say that you can clean up tackling, But doesn't it feel like we're seeing the same thing from last season again? Like there was times where the 49ers were just completely inept at finishing tackles.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like maybe that's one of the things that when you're practicing, like it's probably hard to simulate
Simulate, yeah.
true tackling, in training camp or even practice in the regular season as well, because you can't actually tackle. So that's the coach's job to figure out how they could best do that and have it translate into actual games. Because yeah, right now, it didn't really look good. Taking bad angles, not really wrapping up or anything like that. So, and it wasn't even just like on regular plays. Special teams did
I was
not
waiting for you to
look.
bring it up.
One of us had to. It, yeah, man. Like, and look, I'm looking at the rule change for kick returns as an opportunity. Like, teams could get ahead of this and
Yeah,
they could look really good. And I don't know. I guess they can take advantage of the fact that other teams are still kind of
yeah.
learning it.
The thing
49ers
is
look
no
like a team that they're still going to be learning it for quite some time
for a
because
while.
that was not good for a while.
So I'm a sick human being. I watched every single week 1 game. Everybody. For different reasons. And
Yeah.
obviously the other reason is to see how people are dealing with this kick
Yep.
stuff. For the most part, these kicks don't get past the 25 to 30. But here come the 49ers. Let's make sure that we put on tape that we're going to be the one team that has no idea how to defend this thing and really not do a good job with it. Everyone else, there might have been 1 or 2 kicks across the entire week 1 of preseason. And this is something definitely to monitor because a lot of teams are going through how they're going to do it. Nobody's showing anything right now. The Kansas City Chiefs are probably going to have Xavier Worthy back there, throw the ball to Kadarius Toney, throw it back to somebody else and like run it. Like there's going to be something crazy going on. But as of right now, just hat on hat, person across from person. I don't get why you guys are just looking around like it's like they were told right now, like before the game, this is what we're gonna. This is the kickoff. This is where yeah. So get ready and go. It's crazy to think that they're all looking around like, wait a minute, that's the new kickoff. That's what they look like on the one.
Which like is baffling to me because it is something like they were practicing in camp that I saw. Again, like it's different to simulate in practice than to actually experience the real thing. But it's still like the fundamentals of special teams tackling, like so those things are missing. And like it's just the same thing over and over again. So I'm just kind of at this point, look, it's a preseason, all right? They got some time to clean some things up, all right? Just like the defense did or does with the tackling. So I'm gonna give it some time. But if this is something that continues into the regular season, I'm a little concerned and I'd be making the seat warm for Schneider.
Well, Schneider, whoever before, like the 49ers special team has been an issue.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so it's like it doesn't really matter who's there. He's the one that's just got to like bear the brunt of this.
He's a coach though.
He is a coach.
So do you think this is an issue beyond like the coaching? Like it's like it's always gonna be bad.
Well, it's got to be the special teams coordinator. Let's fire him and bring somebody else in. Then you bring somebody else in. Well, it's got to be the special teams coordinator. You got to fire the guy.
I mean, we said that for the longest time about like, injuries, right? Like remember all those years that people were like, fire the strength and conditioning staff, like all the entire team, like, and then they would, and then it would kind of happen again. But like, I mean, eventually they figured it out where it's now at an NFL normal level. It's not like as ridiculous as it used to be. So I would just like the 49ers special teams to be at a normal level. To me, they're bad. They're bad. At least right now, they look bad.
You heard it here first.
Thank God we have Jake Moody.
Ronnie's question says Jason and Steph with Matt Breida returning, is Elijah Mitchell on the bubble? Ooh, I'll pass this one to the training camp. The attendee.
I mean, I wouldn't say that Breida is going to be someone that makes this roster. Like I wouldn't have thought that before he got signed. And the only reason he got signed was because Elijah Mitchell got hurt, among Christian McCaffrey also getting hurt. So assuming that, week 1 or at roster cuts, like they feel good about where Christian McCaffrey's at and Elijah Mitchell, then I would think Matt Breida wouldn't make it over Elijah Mitchell. Now, that still doesn't mean Mitchell is safe though, because I think we know that Jordan Mason, he's looking great. It's been the summer of Jordan Mason so far. And then I also thought Cody Schrader did pretty good too. And he's like, there's been a couple of guys that have praised him and how he's looked so far. He had a couple of nice blitz pickups as well in the preseason game. So those are things that, the coaching staff is going to care about. So aside from just the, being able to run and all that. So I don't know. I just think with the amount of injuries that Elijah Mitchell continues to have like throughout his career, like I don't know if the 49ers feel like he's worth keeping, but at the same time, like they've made that decision to keep him over, all the injuries that, he continues to have before. The question is like, how strongly do they feel about Jordan Mason being that number 2 going forward, where they feel more comfortable about, letting go of Elijah Mitchell?
Yeah, 11 snaps for Jordan Mason, 34 yards on 6 rushes. That's certainly good. 17 of those yards came after contact, and he caused 1 missed tackle with a long run of 13 yards. Aha, but here's the issue. Pass protection, Jordan Mason allowed a quarterback hit in the pressure, 16.2 pass protection grade on 2 pass blocking snaps. It's the quickest way to get Kyle Shanahan to not play you, no matter how good you're running the football. And then Cody Schrader and Matt Breida combined for 10 yards on 11 carries. The second leading rusher for the San Francisco 49ers on Saturday. It's the uncuttable, unlet-goable Trent Taylor with 21 yards. I think Jordan Mason deserves a lot more run, but again, those misses like on those pass, that's the quickest way for Kyle to get mad at you. So
yeah,
does that? I think that kind of just means that he would at least trust Elijah Mitchell a little bit more, at least in that regard in pass pro.
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell is really good in pass protection, super reliable in that regard. And that's kind of been the suspicion for some time now as to why, like, despite as strong of a runner as he is, Jordan Mason hasn't been given the opportunities over Elijah Mitchell, and it's left people baffled. But, like, you got to understand, like, to coaches, like, that is important. Like, it holds a lot of weight if you could pass protect. So yeah, if you're going to be making those mistakes, someone else is probably going to get those opportunities over you. He still has some chances, in my opinion, to correct that, before roster cuts here. But since it has been something he's, I think, struggled with more so than, Mitchell, that could see Mitchell like edge him out.
I liked a lot of things that I saw from Yetur Gross-Matos in his short time on the field. Funny enough that we've been kind of tabbing him as the Omenihu replacement in terms of his versatility of, rushing inside and outside in the game 94. So I think they're in on the joke as well too, right? So I think that was good. D Winters, I think he had some good moments, some bad moments. Like he looked good in a certain way, in certain spots. Obviously Ambry Thomas, being injured now probably makes him an IR candidate. It may be for the season. I don't know. I'm not sure about those rules. So it could be a 4-week thing, whatever it is, short-term IR. I don't even know if that's still a thing, especially during training camp. Eric Soibert is your tight end too. No questions asked. So that's done. Like, don't talk to me about Braden Willis or Cam Latu. That's not happening. And it's just not. I mean, again, the 49ers are not going to change. This is what's so frustrating about the Steelers thing. It's like, we're giving you Pat Freiermuth. So now Kyle's going to run 2 tight ends all of a sudden, like instead of the way that he really wants to do with 1 blocker and George Kittle to make the run game stronger and have those guys basically act like extra linemen. So yeah, I mean, everything else kind of seems in place. I think Jair Brown is clearly your starting safety. We're going to find out what happens from Talanoa Hufanga as he comes back. It's kind of a bummer about the joint practices was we were setting our watch to, well, Hufanga is going to be there. Maybe we'll see. Yeah. And again, I think you learn a lot about the team when you see them go against each other. Joint practices are very, very, very competitive. Ask the Lions, ask the Giants. I mean, I think it was Gerard Mayo with the Patriots who has threatened his team about fights in in team practice, in joint practices by saying, if you're a starter and you start a fight, you will not play in the preseason game. And if you're not a starter and you start a fight, you're going to play the entire preseason game. Meaning, like, we're going to wear you out. We're going to run you into the ground. It's a hell of a threat, man. That's Gerard Mayo's definitely coming with some stuff. But, yeah, the joint practices being a bit of a bummer, you know, is, let's see. I'm not reading that, Rob. I refuse to read that, Rob. I refuse. I'm just not gonna read it. I Steph, if you want to read it, I'm not reading that. I'm not.
I mean, I'll just say this. This is I don't know how reputable you.
I am not. I am not reading that.
I don't know how reputable you want to say this is.
Take it off the screen, Rob. Get it out of here. I'm not reading that.
I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it for the audio listeners. But this is from 49ers Sports Talk on Twitter/X. Okay. Again, taken with a grain of salt. He says Kyle Shanahan and wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk had more than one heated exchange during conversations over the last few weeks. Per his source, is it still repairable? Well, money talks, source said. But like Jay, this doesn't sound too far off from like the reports that we had already heard of like, oh, like the two sides had talks and said a lot of things that needed to be said.
Yeah,
Kyle and
I, you got into a heated exchange as who's the better college receiver. That's what they're arguing about. I was better at Texas. You never played, Kyle. I actually played. Oh,
yeah.
I'm not reading that. I'm not responding to that. I'm not responding to that. I'm sorry, man. I've had good, conversations with him. I have nothing against him. I'm just not responding to that. A lot of it's repurposed, a lot of it's reworded, and then you just throw in that other thing about a heated discussion. I'm sure there probably was a heated discussion or two because guys are frustrated. You know what I mean? But like, it doesn't matter. God, Steph. All right. Ronnie Montoya says, who surprised you most and least on game one? Surprised me the most. Replacement punter from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who actually could be good. I don't know what's going on with Mitch Richmond. No, I'm joking. BA making fun of Kyle's mullet was the breaking point. Yeah, like why did he let the mustache go and go right to the mullet? Like I don't understand it. Yeah. What's he running up there, man? What the hell's he got going on up there? No, seriously. All right.
He had like a little taper. He had a little taper.
Yeah, right. Like I was just like, oh, we're good. And I'm like, what's that in the back? Like, chill out, Joe Dirt. Like, get rid of that, man. It's not vibing right now. See, that's the vibes are off. What's your coach drip looking like? Don't show it, Rob.
New hat. Can we talk about the new hat too?
I like that hat. That hat's all right.
I would like it more if it didn't have the giant NFC logo on it. Like, why?
Well, you have to. When you wear a hat, don't you want people to know what conference your favorite team is playing in? Like, I mean,
apparently,
come on.
Apparently, this is a huge thing.
That's for the people that see, oh, he's a 49ers fan. I wonder what conference they play in. The National Conference. Right here.
The N. Big N.
I'm glad that we're getting back to be like laughing and everything, at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
just like, whatever.
If nothing else, Jay, like we're gonna have good vibes here on
maybe
football, if nothing else.
And
we might yell a little. You might get a little spicy, but
I'm good.
Bring it back. We're gonna bring it
I think it's because I hear Averly in the background yelling about Super Y, and she's all happy, and I'm just like, see, look, man, I want to not worry about things that are out of my control,
bring
right?
It back down to earth.
Yeah, 100%. But maybe the real contract extension are the friends that we made along the way. Boom! I had to get it in there, guys. Take a drink. All right. It's a perfect place to end it. Guys, thank you so much for tapping in with us. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for when we go live. Make sure you're subscribed to the Bully Ball audio podcast, wherever you get your audio podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Follow me on Twitter at JasonAponte2103. And thank you guys again for hanging out with us, Steph. It's always good to see you. For Steph, for Jay, we're out here.
Peace.